Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wiser Wednesday, the series where I make you a little bit wiser about some of the best sci-fi and fantasy authors that I think you all should be reading. It's Tuesday evening, however. I couldn't film earlier in the day because of the unrelenting construction, so we're cutting it a bit close. But it is a very special Tuesday, and that is because today is the release date for Blood of the Chosen. And this is a book that I'm extremely pleased with, and I'm so excited that you all can finally get your hands on a copy. And so, to mark the release of this book, today the author that we're going to be talking about is Django Wexler. And, by the way, I was mistakenly sent 2 copies of this book, so if you want to get your hands on a copy of Blood of the Chosen, stick around to the end of the video and I will let you know how you can enter this giveaway. Before we get started, you know the deal. I'd appreciate it if you went down below and hit the like button and notification bell. And if you guys felt inclined to share it with a fellow fantasy lover or just share it wherever you guys talk about sci-fi and fantasy books online, I would absolutely greatly appreciate that. And so because it's so late and I'm cutting it so close, this video is hopefully going to be pretty quick, and I'm not going to go as deep into detail as I normally do about the author. I'm more just going to talk about his series a little bit later on in the video. The first reason to read Django Wexler is for his variety. This dude has a lot of books, and in addition to the 2 series that I'm going to be talking about later on in the video, he also has 2 YA series, one of them being The Forgotten Library, which I have not read, and the Wells of Sorcery trilogy, which I finished earlier this year when the 3rd book came out, and I really enjoy it overall. It feels a lot like the Monster Hunter games, so if you're a fan of those, I think that you would enjoy his book. His worlds all feel very different to me, and so if you're a little bit stagnant in your reading right now, I feel like picking up some of his books could be a really great change of pace, since no 2 of them are completely alike. Django Wexler's world building is really solid, and he's able to create these worlds that feel just so insanely vivid to me, which I find really interesting because typically it takes more of the kind of, beautiful purple style of prose that's very just like flowery and atmospheric to get me to really picture a world in like really just great detail. But something about the way that Wexler writes allows me to do that. And yeah, it's just interesting because he goes about, like in terms of his writing style, his books are just very straight to the point and, straightforward. And with the more utilitarian style of prose, I just find it, interesting that he's able to get me to picture things just so well, because normally that doesn't happen. But yeah, with the utilitarian style of prose, his books are extremely readable and so easy to fly through. The real reason to read Django Wexler, in my opinion, is for his characters. Django Wexler is able to just really make me care about his characters very quickly, which I find interesting. And yeah, his characters are really where his stories shine the most for me. Even with his characters that I don't like, I'm looking at you, Kitsraya, Danger Makes Me Horny, Doomseeker. She's so annoying. But even with the characters who I don't particularly like, I can recognize that they're actually characterized well in terms of how they're written. And so, yeah, I just really care about almost all of his characters. I absolutely adore Winter Earnglass from the Shadow campaigns and Jane, and I really like Princess Raycinia as well when we're introduced to her in the 2nd Shadow campaign's book. And along with that, in terms of like Burning Blade and Silvereye, I absolutely adore Geyer, I adore Maya, and I just don't want either of them to get hurt, and I don't want them to have to hurt each other either, since they're on opposite sides of this conflict. So I'm just really invested in all of them. And I think it's interesting that he's able to make me care about people so quickly, since normally it can take me a while to like I can like a character pretty quickly, but in order to feel like really, really connected to them and to deeply, deeply care about them and feel invested, it normally takes some time. But with his books, it's pretty quick for me. But despite Wexler's amazing characters, I do want to make a point that his books don't actually feel particularly character driven to me. Not in the way that someone like Joe Abercrombie just writes amazing, incredible characters and then simply lets their decisions carry the story forward. For Wexler, I feel like he writes plot-driven books. Like, they're definitely plot-driven, but he populates them with incredible characters. And so, if you are more of a character-driven reader, I do still think that you'll really like his books because of how fleshed out and great the characters are. But in terms of actual story itself, it's pretty plot-driven. So with that out of the way, let's talk about which of his series is right for you. So like I mentioned, we're only going to be talking about his 2 adult series. He does have the 2 other YA series, The Forgotten Library, which I haven't read, and Wells of Sorcery, which I have read and actually do enjoy. But since I mostly read adult fantasy, and I figure that's what, like, I'm pretty sure that's what most of my audience is reading to, we're just going to focus on his 2 adult series. So if you're debating picking up Wexler, here are the 2 options that you can go with. So the series that Wexler is most well known for is definitely the Shadow Campaigns, which is a flintlock fantasy story set in a world loosely based off of Europe and North Africa. The series follows, like a traditional military conflicts between rival nations and whatnot, but along with the typical conflict, there's also a supernatural conflict brewing as well. So in this world, there are entities called demons to the European-ish church, and simply called spirits by the desert-dwelling people of the kind of outer Kandar provinces. These entities are able to basically inhabit a human soul and live symbiotically with them. And when these demons enter a person, they do confer some kind of unique supernatural ability. And the church, who considers them demons, absolutely hates them and wants to track them all down and bind them, essentially. The way that the church goes about binding these demons is very, very interesting, however. And they basically rely on very pious people who are willing to essentially forfeit their souls to eternal damnation by becoming penitent damned. Penitent damned are people who willingly bind a demon and let it into their own soul in exchange for supernatural powers. And these penitent damned then use these supernatural powers to go about tracking down and kind of binding other demons in turn. The church's entire goal is to bind all of the demons. However, it's, very notable that the presence of these penitent damned and their supernatural abilities definitely serve to reinforce the church's power. And so that's kind of an interesting bit of world building, and it kind of explains the political landscape a little bit. But in the Shadow Campaigns, we are primarily following 3/4 characters. The main POVs are Marcus de Voir, and he's an infantry commander in the army. There's Winter Earnglass, who is a woman who's disguised herself as a man in order to escape her past, and she enlists in the army. And then there is Princess Raysinia, who we're introduced to in book 2, and she is the daughter of the king, and she was very, very, very sick, and as such, a clergy member came to her at the king's behest and basically gave her a demon to improve her health. And now Raysinia is, for all intents and purposes, completely immortal. And then the 4th character that we're following is a kind of like mythical figure in the eyes of the soldiers, and his name is Janis Beckvalnik, and he's a figure that's kind of akin to Napoleon. He's this genius, strategist, military leader, general, and he's definitely very, very enigmatic. He's one of the few people not part of the church who believes in sorcery, and he has some interesting ulterior motives that we learn about the further we get into the series. So the first book in the Shadow Campaigns is The Thousand Names, which is a book that is good. It's solid. I like it. But once you get into book 2 and beyond, I think that is where the series really, really takes off and begins to really, really shine. I love this series so much, and I think it has a very satisfying ending, unlike a certain other Flintlock fantasy I can think of. So if you're into Flintlock, I think that is going to be the series that you should pick up. But the other series that he has that I actually prefer more, despite only having read the 2 books, that series is Burning Blade and Silver Eye. And the first book is Ashes of the Sun, and the second book is this one here, Blood of the Chosen. This is a story that follows 2 siblings on opposite sides of a growing conflict. But little do they know there are also some unseen forces that are beginning to stir, and it seems like another conflict is approaching. So the 2 characters we're following are Geir and Maya. The 2 of them are siblings. They live together on a farm, and one day a centaur of the Twilight Order comes to their farm and recognizes that Maya is a magic user, and he basically rips the 5-year-old Maya out of the arms of her family and takes her away to the Twilight Order. Geir, 8 at the time, obviously doesn't want to lose his sister, and so he attacks the centaur, who then turns his power on Geir to take his eye. Now it's 15, 20-ish years later, and Maya, all she's ever really known has been the Order, and she's wholly devoted to it. She is nearly a full centaur herself, and she is able to wield the power of Dayat to devastating effect. And she believes in, the Twilight Order, in their mission, and she wants to protect the Dawn Republic. However, on the other side, we have Geir, and since his little sister was abducted, his family has basically fallen apart completely. Geir left home when he is fairly young, and now he hates the Twilight Order and everything that they stand for. He believes that they have a stranglehold on humanity, and he works as a rebel and hopes to one day take them down. And so, obviously, there are these 2 people who haven't seen each other in a very long time, but despite that, they still obviously really, really love each other. But they are diametrically opposed in their beliefs and their values. And so as the story goes on, it's certainly interesting. And yeah, I just really, really love it. Well, in terms of the world building, this is a series that's a little bit sci-fantasy. This is a series that is definitely fantasy, but it does have some interesting technology that they call arcana. And these are objects of power and artifacts that are left over from the war with the ghouls centuries before. The ghouls are a race that was at war with these kind of divine figures called the Chosen. The Chosen are kind of like, I suppose, the pure embodiment of the power of Dayat. And the Chosen actually created the Twilight Order and waged war against these ghouls and defeated them centuries ago. And after that conflict was over, the Chosen basically relinquished control over the Dawn Republic over to their human followers in the Twilight Order, and then completely disappeared themselves. However, this ancient war might not be as over as everyone suspects. There are definitely forces stirring. The ghouls aren't as dead as everyone believes, and there seems to be a lot of stuff going on beneath the surface that even I don't know about 2 books in. So the world building for this one is really interesting. There are basically these 2 ancient races, the ghouls and the Chosen, and each of these races wields its own kind of power. The Chosen wield Dayat, which is Dea is a little complicated because it manifests in a lot of different ways. But the ghouls, they weed Daka, and Daka is basically flesh magic, and the ghouls are able to do like wondrous, insane alterations to flesh. And in addition to that, the ghouls are obviously very, very smart and have created all of this interesting technology. And their most powerful and mind blowing kind of tools are the pieces that link together their technology and their flesh magic. But just as this world has humans, the centaurs of the Twilight Order who wield Dea, this world also has humans who are somehow able to wield the power of Daka, and these are called Dakim, and they can use this ghoulish flesh magic to devastating effect, and they're considered evil and hunted down by the Twilight Order. But these Dakim are how we get what are called plague spawn. Plague spawn are creatures made of Daka, and they're basically how we get like these twisted creatures of glistening flesh covered all over in mouths filled with teeth made of like broken, jagged bones, while also being covered head to toe in eyes from all of the animals or humans that these plague spawn have consumed the flesh of and then co-opted. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in terms of the world building in this series, and I think if you are looking for something that feels a little bit new, or you're just kind of feeling tired in some typical world building tropes, then I think Burning Blade and Silver Eye is a good series to pick up. So those are his two adult series. Pick whichever one you think will suit you best. But because I was mistakenly sent 2 copies of Blood of the Chosen, now it is time for the giveaway. So if you want to enter this giveaway, all you have to do is go down below, like the video, and then comment telling me why you want this book or why you think it'll be the series for you. And I'll pick a winner next Sunday night, and I will respond to your comment, and we can get in touch, and I can ship it off to you. So yeah, that is Django Wexler for you. Hopefully some of you guys pick up some of his books. That would make me really, really happy. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, I really, really appreciate that. That is all for now, so bye.